First. I'm Mark Eichmann along with Shirley Min and Michelle Polston. A top political priority is to bring back manufacturing jobs. Delaware could benefit from a new group that aims to do just that.
Delaware's most populous county could certainly benefit from new jobs. We'll talk to Newcastle County Executive Matt Meyer on the issues he faces 4 weeks after taking over the top spot.
A library opens your mind to explore new things. For Ken Mabry, it sparked his artistic creativity. First, your public media news magazine starts now.
We've been hearing a lot of talk recently on bringing back or creating new manufacturing jobs. And while the University of Delaware's new Manufacturing USA Institute won't teach students how to build cars, it is part of the school's renewed focus on research. For this week's First Look, we visit the Newark campus to learn more about that research effort. In his 2014 State of the Union, President Obama called for an expansion of efforts to improve high-tech manufacturing.
We also have the chance right now to beat other countries in the race for the next wave of high-tech manufacturing jobs. And my administration's launched 2 hubs for high-tech manufacturing in Raleigh, North Carolina, and Youngstown, Ohio, where we've connected businesses to research universities that can help America lead the world in advanced technologies.
Those manufacturing hubs have now expanded to 11. The latest is at the University of Delaware in Newark. UD is now the headquarters for the National Institute for Innovation in Manufacturing Biopharmaceuticals, better known as NIMBLE, where researchers are working on improving techniques for manufacturing biopharmaceuticals.
One could argue all of the easy manufacturing challenges have been solved, and so what's left to really go to the next level are some of the more challenging manufacturing issues that a number of companies want to try to address and solve.
Solving those problems could lead to treatments for Alzheimer's disease and some cardiovascular disease. Finding those solutions is a part of the University of Delaware's increasing focus on research.
It requires a commitment by the institution to try to invest in the right way, to grow in the right way, and we have some very inspired and new leadership at the university that's really trying to push the boundaries to promote not only the university's interest in terms of research and expanding in that direction, but also our impact on the nation.
As part of the research push, Charlie Reardon's vice provost position was promoted to a vice president post, reporting directly to UD's new president, Dennis Asanis.
I think that reflects a natural evolution of the institution and the increasing importance that the president, the board of trustees, and the entire university places on the role of research, but also scholarship and innovation. Increasingly, more and more students across all disciplines are expected to have a research experience, particularly at the undergraduate level.
That research experience better prepares students for more than just their first job out of college.
If all we do is prepare them for their first job out of college, we haven't been successful. And so we're really focused on that longer-term journey, and part of that longer-term journey is to ensure that those students are prepared in ways that they can help drive the economy by creating new industries and creating new companies.
One of those new companies created out of UD research is SimuCare, founded by Professor Amy Copperwaith. The company's products allow nursing students to learn how to interact with live patients who've had a tracheostomy.
This product is called SimuTrach, and essentially it was a product that was made out of the University of Delaware.
Replacing the old training mannequins, this device uses sensors that send signals to the trained patient who responds to the procedure as necessary.
Sorry, 1 minute. 1 minute. Okay, 1 more minute. Okay, I've got it. Okay,
now they get to see real-time reactions, real-time behaviors, and then get feedback at the end of the simulation.
After collaborating with other UD departments, including theater and mechanical design, SimuCare was launched as a company in 2015.
The amount of support that you need to do research and development on a product financially would not be feasible or possible for any of the faculty members here. The support of not just the financial support, but the support to encourage faculty to do these research projects, it just propels us forward.
Whether it's developing new biopharmaceuticals or better training methods for nurses, UD's new research push is well on its way.
Over the past several years, we've expended more than $140 million in research-sponsored dollars, and we fully expect and know that that trajectory is headed upward in a very steep way.
Right now, there are more than 1,000 students taking part in undergraduate research each year, and more than 3,800 graduate students are involved in research projects. And while we talked a lot about science and lab-type work, there's all sorts of disciplines doing research at UD, including areas like education, communication, and a whole lot more.
So Mark, beyond helping these students prepare for their careers, what's the benefit of all this research?
Right. Well, a lot of the people we talked to at UD were very quick to point out how important it is for all these not just to be an academic practice or something that just stays within the walls of the university. Obviously, with the Manufacturing USA funding in the area of biopharmaceuticals, that has long-term potential to improve healthcare opportunities across the nation. There's also a workforce development piece to all this. You have thousands of students learning very marketable skills in these emerging employment sectors, and so that could draw new employers in those fields to either move to Delaware or start up here.
Okay, well, thanks, Mark. You can learn more about UD research at newsworks.org/Delaware.
Coming up in First Experience, a trip to the library did more than open up Ken Mabry to books. It opened him up to an artistic world. And an African-American cemetery is brought to life with the completion of the Mike Castle Trail. Matt Meyer's been on the job for just under a month as Newcastle County Executive, and we welcome him to our show as our first person. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Has the title settled in and sort of the job duties that come with it?
Well, I was a middle school teacher, so I've been called a lot worse things. People are, we're settling in. We had a great transition, and we're getting right to work.
You have a lot on your plate, managing the county budget being one of them, which is tied to the employment picture in the county. How would you characterize Newcastle County's, fiscal picture?
The county government has some challenges. Our revenues have been constant over time, roughly constant, but our expenses are growing. And we're dealing with that. We're putting a plan in place to deal with that. And there are also challenges with respect to the state budget. We're all citizens here and taxpayers to the state, and the state has some unique fiscal challenges this year. And we're working with the state to figure out how we address those.
When Governor Markell put out his proposed budget, you released a statement, and you said we were looking forward to working with the state legislature and the Carney administration. How does that work in terms of working together? Your office calls his office, and you set up a meeting, or kind of walk me through that.
Well, it's important to note that we're sort of making it up. We're creating it. In the past, the relationship between the different governments has not been as strong as I think it needs to be. So I'm taking a lot actually from my experience in Iraq, where I was a diplomat, and we were trained how to work effectively with other agencies, the U.S. government. How do you work with soldiers who have completely different training from you? So one lesson from that is that we're going to have different employees in county government at different levels meeting with state government officials at different levels on a regular basis. So we understand each other's problems. We understand how we can help each other and collaborate to make a more efficient package for local taxpayers.
Do you think in the past there just wasn't as many lines of communication open between county level and state level?
Well, I think that often the leaders of the governments were well-meaning, well-intentioned, but I think there needs to be specific strategies for different governments to work together. Each government has its own goal and its own purpose, and at times they come in conflict. So at the top, we need to address those, and we will be addressing those.
Do you think the county can expect any additional support from the state than maybe what was proposed in this initial budget?
Yeah, I don't know. We're not going to speculate. We're looking at our own internal budget and doing whatever we can to provide the most efficient package to the county taxpayer.
As far as the Newcastle County Police Chief, Elmer Settings retired. We have Lieutenant Colonel Von Bonn in the interim chief. Are you looking outside, or how is this search going?
We've just begun our search. And we're not really going to comment. I didn't comment on any of my searches during the transition. And so we're not going to make any specific comment, except Lieutenant Colonel Bond is the acting police chief right now. He has decades of experience in the county police force, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone in the county who would say he's not doing a great job as acting police chief.
I want to focus now on the city of Wilmington. former mayors Dennis Williams and the former executive Tom Gordon, they had a very close relationship. Do you hope to have some sort of close relationship with Mayor Mike Persicki moving forward?
Yeah, we want to make sure that it's a close relationship, not only personally, but it translates into value for the taxpayers and the citizens of the city of Wilmington, safer streets in the city of Wilmington, and in fact for all the people in Newcastle County. It's important to note that as the city of Wilmington goes, the county goes. We can't have a successful county if the city of Wilmington is facing the kind of problems it's facing now, which is one reason why just yesterday we announced with Mayor Persicki, with Governor Carney, an effort to address this spike in violence the last few weeks in Wilmington. It's something that's not only important to me as a policymaker, as county executive, but also someone who spent time teaching on the east side of Wilmington at Prestige Academy. And so we're going to do that. We're going to do it with all our heart, with all the brains we can bear.
Resources.
It takes resources.
Right.
And there's still some question about how that's going to be paid for. We got to make sure that taxpayers in the county are getting a fair deal. But at the same time, it's important to note, if you read really closely that press release, what we said was, yes, we're going to go in and look hard at policing, making sure that in certain neighborhoods of Wilmington that have had unacceptable levels of violence, that's going to stop. And it's going to stop through policing, intensive policing. But it's also going to, we're also going to increase our community engagement dramatically. I've given my staff the instructions that just like police do deployment strategies and try to figure out where police should be at what times for most effective peacemaking in the streets, we're going to do the same with our community engagement, that same level of intensive deployment.
You know, before we wrap up, I want to talk about land use. It's always kind of been a big deal in the county. And it seems like even if you're doing everything right, people are always questioning whether it's being done. You know, how are you addressing that sort of doubt?
Well, the first thing you should know is that my predecessor came in 4 years ago and promised to change the UDC. Not much has been done. It's hard to change the UDC, the Unified Development Code. We now, a little over 3 weeks into the job, we've already signed our first bill making revisions to the UDC. It's important that the process be open and transparent. In land use, everybody knows there are going to be winners and losers. There are people who want a building built, a grocery store to come into their neighborhood, and there are people that don't want that. The key is that we have a process that's open and transparent, that the process recognizes the value of neighborhoods, that recognizes the landowners, they want their property values to increase, and that we have an obligation to create jobs and retain open space.
Do you think that transparency or lack of transparency was sort of the biggest issue you all were facing in the land use department?
It's one of the issues. Another one is predictability. When you think you got to make sure, construction is one of the largest industries in the country in terms of job creation. If you cut off construction, right, then you lose a large opportunity to create jobs for people that need them most. If you have a land use process that's not predictable, investors in land will look elsewhere. And that's what business people in the area tell me time and again, that investors who are looking at certain land projects, perfect land and perfect place to do a land project, are looking elsewhere. In some ways that's good, right? It controls development. But we need a better balance.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is through predictability, through knowing when someone invests into a project, okay, this process will take this long, and it's likely or unlikely that there will be a positive result. So we're working on that.
Okay, Matt Meyer, Newcastle County Executive, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
If you go online to WHYY.org/first, you can watch our conversations with former Governor Jack Markell and former Vice President Joe Biden.
In the state of Delaware.
Taxes, fees, and regulations are on everyone's mind these days, both in Washington and in Dover. For Delaware corporate and government leaders, there are some issues to wade through as the Trump and the Carney administrations begin to make their marks. In his monthly business conversation, Dace Blaskovitz talks about those issues with Charles Elson, one of the leading authorities on corporate governance.
Welcome back to the segment. Charles Elson.
Good to be with you, Dace.
Let's start at the beginning. Remind us of the importance of Delaware's incorporation franchise.
Well, franchise tax itself brings in about 28% of the revenue.
add the estate tax, it's another 4 or 5%. But the personal income tax and corporate taxes that are based around the regulation of corporate conduct probably gets us to about 60-70% of the state's revenues. It's a significant number.
Over the last arguably 12-15 years, there have been some challenges to this incorporation franchise. To move this along, I'll tee up each one. First, Sarbanes-Oxley.
Sarbanes-Oxley took away from Delaware our regulation of audit committees. It became federalized. And with that, our sway over the audit process disappeared.
Dodd-Frank.
With that, disappeared compensation committees and some voting. Again, two very important areas that we traditionally regulated that is now in the hands of the federal government.
And the third one, and I'm going to leak a secret here because of our personal friendship, this third one is more subjective, but it is the one, it is your burr in the saddle, and that is the aggressive collection of escheat. For a layperson in TV land, what are we talking about?
Well, this is a tax where the state basically takes back unclaimed property that in the corporation, unclaimed shareholder property. In other words, dividends or other distributions to shareholders that were uncashed, untaken by the owner. It eventually goes, we say, it sheets to the state, goes to the state. And it's a tax, and the state lately has gotten very, very aggressive on this with most of companies who are our largest corporate clients, if you will. They've gotten much, much more aggressive in using the tax to basically raise revenues. It was originally a small part of the revenue stream. It's gotten a lot larger lately. They hired a law firm to help them step up enforcement of this tax, and it's become a big number. The problem has been it's irritated beyond belief our customers, our clients, who are concerned about aggressive enforcement. And you add that to the fact that the feds have taken away audit regulation, compensation committee regulation, and some voting. And basically, the relevance of the Delaware courts is a lot less than it traditionally was, which means not that we go to a federal statute over regulating corporate conduct, but instead people move to other states because it's the feds who, in fact, have taken most of the action. In other words, there's no benefit to staying in Delaware. Add to that this aggressive posture on these cheat tax, and you're basically creating a fertile ground for movement somewhere else.
A candidate, Trump, has promised a wave of deregulation. Any hope in that wave of deregulation to perhaps dilute, challenge Sarbanes-Oxley or even Dodd-Frank that might benefit Delaware?
Well, I think for us, interestingly enough, Delaware obviously went a different way in the presidential election, but the election of Trump, oddly enough, I think could be quite helpful to the state, because my guess is I don't see Dodd-Frank in this area or Sarbanes-Oxley being rolled back, but I don't see any new federal moves in the area. In other words, I don't think the area is going to expand. And secondly, my sense is the regulation will be enforced a lot more lightly than it's been now, meaning the Fed's involvement in the area will be either where it is now or maybe a little less, which for us removes that reason to go somewhere else. So in that sense, maybe not a bad thing for us. Oddly enough, though, obviously the state voted the other way.
Let's talk while you're here. There's an upcoming event, spring of 17. It's gotten huge hoopla, if you would. What's the death of Delaware all about?
Well, it's a conference out at UCLA Law School called The Dethroning of Delaware. Can Delaware be dethroned? And it's a national conference. It's publishing a book that's going to come out of it as to can Delaware retain its premier role in the area. I'm going to be out there giving a paper saying, I hope so, because I think it actually makes sense. We really have created a national and fair regulation scheme of corporate life from Delaware. And if it does move to the feds, I think ultimately investors will lose. So I hope it stays with Delaware, but there can be a lot of people there talking about why it shouldn't.
And it's scary that on a national level it's even begun the debate. Is that fair?
Well, the fact that it's in California and the fact that that they're talking about it, the fact the book is coming out certainly isn't helpful to us. No.
State of Delaware is looking at a estimated 350. Some say the whisper number is $500 million deficit. One of the big, arguably, tax increases on the horizon is in this incorporation franchise, our proverbial golden goose. What's your message to the legislators in Dover?
I don't think we can keep going back to the same well over and over and over. Again, If your primary customer are these corporations and you're acting in a manner, particularly with your sheet tax, that they find problematic, you can't keep going back to them over and over and over. At some point, they're going to say enough. They are not the sort of bottomless pit, if you will, of tax revenues. And I think we're going to have to be sensitive to that as we move forward, particularly on the unclaimed property tax.
You're Chicken Little. The sky is falling. 80% of those companies still incorporate here quickly. What do you say to those folks?
I don't think it's going to happen overnight. I think it's not going to be the next couple of years, but I think down the road it's going to be a problem. At some point, the feds crowd out our courts, and at some point, people say, what's the point of incorporating in Delaware? It's expensive. I can stay in my home state, pay a lot less. Why am I there to pay for the Delaware programs of the Delaware government, when in fact I'm not involved?
Thank you. Fascinating stuff. Charles Elson.
That thought will certainly become one of the messages that the legislature and the new governor will hear. One other note about Dace, he is paid as a part-time consultant with the Caesar Rodney Institute.
Jack Markell's last act as governor was to dedicate the final link of the Mike Castle Trail near Delaware City. It gives us a chance to point out a piece of history that can be seen with more clarity, an African American cemetery in an area once known as Polktown.
Delaware is a hub of American history.
Willis Phelps Jr., president of the African Union Cemetery Group, wants everyone to know about the hidden history here in Delaware when he gets into character and portrays a black soldier who survived the Civil War, came back to Delaware wounded, and is now buried in this cemetery.
My goal, our goal, is to show number one, the diversity of the war when you take African Americans, and you take a place like Gettysburg where the war tide was changing in 1863, July. Well, Gettysburg had a large German population, and African Americans were there. The abolitionists, they fought to help, and that diversity is not shown as we talk and teach on the Civil War.
Several members of the United States colored troops from the Civil War are buried at the African Union Church Cemetery. Phelps says they were segregated in death as they were in life.
Delaware being a slave state, it was unique in that these folks were on a federal property at the fort, emancipated, and they could go into the population. The thing is, some places in Delaware, you needed to have a pass to come and go.
Phelps works hard to bring alive the story behind the cemetery today, an often forgotten tract of history which was once known as the Polktown Cemetery, one of the earliest free black communities in Delaware.
So in Delaware, a place like Polktown was a sanctuary. Wilmington itself was a sanctuary. So a town like this that's on the river, along the Delaware River, was quite a place that had folks coming and going, some who were freedom seekers, some who lived here and worked and survived.
Thanks to state officials, the restoration of the cemetery is connected to a pedestrian trail project designed to attract visitors ready to explore the historical element of it.
5 African American troops who served with the Union in the Civil War are buried there. And I think to take the opportunity of this trail to highlight that and to restore that cemetery should not go unnoticed. And I think when we talk about this trail, is something that really we should all remember.
With the help of Governor Jack Markell, Delaware is the friendliest third bicyclist state in the country, with about 21% of Delawareans now living within a 10-mile radius of a bike or pedestrian pathway.
I do love to cycle, and I love to hike, and I love to do it because it's good for my physical health and it's good for my mental health. But that's true for people throughout our state. And the more that we can get people outside and appreciating the beauty of what we have, the better off we're going to be.
The African Union Cemetery is now owned by Mount Salem Church in Delaware City. It dates back to 1832. It's a short ferry ride from there to Fort Delaware, where Confederate soldiers were imprisoned during the Civil War.
Delaware artist Ken Mabry has been drawing and painting since childhood. It was during a visit to the Wilmington Public Library where the world of art opened to him, and he hasn't looked back. He takes everyday events and shakes them up. Each painting tells a story, and each viewing of the work reveals something new. Our first experience will show you what we mean.
I've been drawing and painting since I was a kid. My mother used to be an architect. She had pencils around, and so there was drawing around the house, and so I picked that up a little bit. I traded up from crayons to pencils to watercolor to oil paint. I went looking for Harold and the Purple Crayon at the Wilmington Public Library when I was in kindergarten, and I went downstairs into the children's library, and then I saw these N.C. Wyeth paintings of Robinson Crusoe. Just absolutely opened a whole new world for me. N.C. Wyeth was magnificent, and it was like, wow. And it was one of those wow things. I went to Mount Pleasant High School and had Mr. Shaw, and he let me just go and run with it. He gave me a set of paints for my 9th grade graduation and so forth, and so I've been painting ever since. John Sloan did these marvelous New York paintings. I grew up here in Wilmington, and I just love to go see the Sloan New York paintings. It's like the elevated trains at night, and he's one of my heroes. He was able to build compositions out of figures, and that's what I've been doing. The people become the counterpoint or the touchstone which ties it together. The human form is just this great 5 appendage thing. You can get them to dance, you get them to move. I'm trying to get the colors in my paintings to dance, get your viewer's eye to dance through the paintings and see something new. I obscure to reveal. It's like those old children's highlights. Find the image inside the drawing. There's always more to see. It'll reveal itself over time, and you can keep on coming back and see something new to the work. My favorite part is the discovery. It's the finding of the image. It's the first scribbling, the mark making, and finding the figure, finding a composition, and it just gives you a story and it gives you something to paint. I'm here because it's something I can do. It's just been part of my life. It was my means of communicating. It's my literature. I hope they get some sort of joy in viewing the work. I hope it enlightens them. I hope it gives them a chance to maybe reminisce. If I can get people to look and see something different and give them something to come back to and maybe make them smile.
Ken counts N.C. Wyeth and John Sloan, among some others, as his heroes. Most days you can find Ken inside a studio located inside the Delaware Contemporary at the Wilmington Riverfront. For more information, visit them on the web at decontemporary.org.
Next week on First, John Carney has been on the job about 2 weeks now. Time for him to visit our First studios. And the news this week is that World Cafe Live is giving up management of the Queen Theater in Wilmington, and it brings up new questions on the progress of redevelopment along Market Street.
And we'll look forward to those stories and more next time. That is First for this week. We thank you for watching. For Nichelle Polston and Shirley Min, I'm Mark Eichman. Have a great week.